Your friend just got their third tattoo, your coworker revealed a new sleeve this morning, and your Instagram has become a non-stop gallery of fresh ink. And there you are with completely clean, untouched skin, and slowly you start to feel like you're the weird one in the room. In a world where tattoos have become the new normal, choosing to stay blank starts to feel almost radical, almost strange. But why exactly? Nobody ever really analyzes the psychology of people who just never get one, and it's actually far more complex than you'd expect. Nearly half of all millennials have at least one tattoo, almost an entire generation walking around with permanent decisions written directly on their skin. Everyone is busy analyzing why people get tattooed. Almost nobody asks why some simply don't. And the answer is not what you'd expect at all. One thing is clear from the start, it's almost never about fear of needles or pain. That explanation barely scratches the surface of what's really happening. It actually has to do with how certain people relate psychologically to time, personal identity, and their own sense of a future self. In psychology, there's a concept called future self-continuity. Your ability to imagine yourself 20 years from now and still feel genuinely connected to that person. Not everyone experiences that connection the same way. And that one difference changes everything about how permanent, irreversible decisions feel to different kinds of people. For some people, getting a tattoo feels like making a final, irreversible choice on behalf of a future version of themselves they haven't even met yet. That's not indecision. That's not a lack of commitment. Psychology calls it future-oriented thinking. And we know personality can shift dramatically over time. There's also been a major cultural shift. A few decades ago, tattoos carried very specific social codes: sailor, rebel, outsider. They meant something fixed and defined. Today, they're fashion, mainstream art, aesthetic choices. That shift made tattoos universal. And it also made the people who opt out more noticeably visible. People who never get tattoos are often what psychologists call anticipatory regret experts. They're not avoiding the tattoo. They're avoiding a specific future feeling. Anticipatory regret is the ability to sense a future disappointment before a decision is made, like running a simulation of a future you don't want to live. There's also something called fluid identity orientation. These people see themselves as constantly evolving, unfinished, adapting, always in motion, always in the process of becoming. To them, a tattoo feels like pressing pause on an identity that was never designed to remain still. That discomfort is real, it's visceral, it's genuine. But here's where it gets complicated. Sometimes that openness reflects real ongoing growth. Other times it covers a quieter fear of commitment that goes unacknowledged. Social perception plays a big role too. Even though tattoos are fully mainstream, they still communicate something in certain contexts. And some people are very aware of that. Psychology calls it impression management, the strategic awareness of how physical choices affect how others will perceive you across different contexts and years down the road. For some people, body art means surrendering a layer of control over how they'll be seen at a job interview, a first meeting, or at 50 years old. Studies consistently show that around 17% of tattooed people experience some level of regret. The people who never got one were quietly ahead of that statistic all along. Then there's a quieter, philosophical reason. Some people see clean skin as a deliberate choice, a kind of personal minimalism about how they present themselves to the world. They believe identity lives internally. It's not something that needs to be displayed on a surface, announced to strangers, or validated through visible and permanent external marks. They don't need anything written on their skin to know who they are. Their sense of self doesn't require an audience or an external surface to exist on, because meaning doesn't need ink. We've built a culture where a tattoo seems to equal depth or intention, but depth doesn't actually depend on external expression at all. The absence of a tattoo doesn't mean an absence of identity. It means identity lives in the quieter, deeper place that no one from the outside can ever really see. So the psychology of people who never get tattooed is really about future self-continuity, fluid identity, anticipatory regret, impression management, and a philosophy of internal meaning. And the most interesting part, choosing not to do something permanent often requires just as much clarity and self-knowledge as choosing to do it, maybe even more. Because sometimes the absence of a decision reveals just as much about who we are as the decision itself. The blank page always has its own kind of story to tell. Whether you're covered in ink or completely blank, what matters is that the choice is conscious, genuine, and authentically yours. That's the only kind that means anything.